This is the News 4 Rundown.
Good evening, and thank you for joining us for the News 4 Rundown. I'm Sean Yancey. It is Tuesday, January 27th, the third full day that this snowstorm has kept many of us indoors. The storm that moved in late Sunday night dumped inches of snow and ice across the region, and the cold blast that followed made it hard for many of you to clean up the mess that's left behind. Take a look. Can you tell this is a sidewalk? Well, if you look really closely, all of that snow piled up there makes it hard to know where you're actually walking. And did you know in the district, you could be fined up to $150 if you own a business in D.C. and your sidewalk is not clear. If you're looking for the perfect time to shovel out, well, may not be for the next few weeks, especially not tomorrow morning. This is what it's going to feel like when the sun comes up. There won't be enough sun, though, to melt away the mounds of snow that have piled up across the region. Storm Team 4 Chief Meteorologist Doug Kammer is tracking the drop in temperatures and our chance for even more snow. But let's check in now on the conditions we're dealing with. Mauricio Casillas is in Prince George's County tonight. Many neighborhoods there have not been plowed. Our Dominique Moody, though, kicks off our coverage from the district where neighbors are also experiencing similar problems.
These other side streets have been kind of untouched.
Many mountains of snow on the roads, an unpleasant sight for Alberto O. He spent a good hour trying to clear the sidewalk outside of his business.
Well, usually it's easy, but this time around it's been a little difficult, a little disappointing also.
Areas like L Street and Southeast have been plowed, but once you get deeper into the neighborhoods, folks say it's a completely different picture, like here on 3rd Street in Southeast.
People are getting stuck. This intersection especially is pretty tricky because there's an incline here.
Main roads and sidewalks in some spots in Navy Yard were mostly clear. D.C.'s Department of General Services says they have been working around the clock to ensure fire stations, police stations, along with other emergency buildings and schools were cleared and treated.
We're using bobcats and ice picks and a lot of manual labor to break down this ice. Now we're focusing on schools, recreation centers, and other municipal buildings so the work of government can continue.
In Northwest, on the other side of Georgia Avenue, we saw snow streets like this on Gresham Place, a larger layer of snow and ice. Up the street along Perry and 14th, we had a bumpy ride but made it through. Then on Q and 5th Streets, a slightly different picture with tire tracks helping to guide you through the street.
I don't know why the smaller streets is very bad. And the sidewalks, a lot of people is not cleaning. I don't know why.
Alleys and backways leading to slippery conditions, even for smaller construction vehicles trying to get through.
You know, this stuff isn't going anywhere given these extreme cold temperatures. So we don't expect for this stuff to melt on its own. You have to physically remove it and move it, and that's just what we're doing. So these efforts will continue likely through Thursday and Friday.
For those on secondary roads, they're hoping large plows make their way to their neighborhood.
Yeah, hopefully they clear up the streets a little bit more because we have deliveries coming in, and I'm wondering how my trash dumpster is going to get cleared.
And D.C.'s Department of Public Works have been sending out enforcement teams to ensure that apartment buildings and businesses are clearing out their front sidewalks to ensure that people are able to move along without having to worry about tripping and falling. And now I want to send it to my colleague Mauricio, who is in Prince George's County.
Yeah, this is Noah Drive. We're at the very top of the hill. The rest of the homes are actually at the bottom of this incredibly steep hill, which is just full of thick and slippery ice. The residents I spoke with who live here tell me that they feel like they're trapped inside of their neighborhood because of how dangerous it is for them to get out of it. And this is what they're dealing with, these thick slabs of ice just trying to get up there. And they tell me that crews have not come at all to plow the roads. They say that they're scared to even attempt to do so because they don't want to get stuck. No relief in sight as residents here are left with the daunting task of navigating this thick, slippery ice.
If I had to get out, I would feel really nervous trying to get up that hill, and I would just have to say a prayer and risk it. But no, I don't feel confident going up it. No, I don't.
Cynthia MacArthur Parker has been vocal about the dangerous conditions she and others have had to face on Noah Drive when it snows. I met her last year when she spoke to Prince George's County Council leaders about her concerns during a meeting.
I don't know whether I want to say it's good to see you or not.
Here we are again a year later with more snow and more ice. She says she put in a 311 request and was told crews could be responding by Friday. And Cynthia's neighbor, Cache Jones, received this response when she reached out to 311.
I literally just received a text at 11:46 today saying that my issue has been resolved. If you look around, my issue has not been resolved.
Clearly
Clearly, it has not been resolved.
The Prince George's County Department of Public Works and Transportation says 100% of primary and secondary roads in the county have been plowed, and 52% of residential roads are considered passable, which they say is significant improvement from the response during last year's storm. But county leaders say they understand the frustration for those who are still stuck.
We get it. If that 52 is not you, that you are ready for 100%. And that is what we are striving to do as fast as possible.
And take a look. This is what some residents in Upper Marlboro had to deal with as well. A similar scene, streets caked with thick ice.
We've made at least 4 passes just on our driveway. I haven't even left my driveway, though, because my street is still not plowed.
So for now, residents in neighborhoods like these are just going to have to hunker down and continue to wait for help.
I want to be patient with them, but at the same time, I want them to be reasonable, with us. Like I said, we pay taxes, we're not asking for a favor.
And again, it's important to point out that county officials say that they made more progress during this storm than they did during the last. They learned some critical lessons in their response. But still, if you're like the folks who live at the bottom of Noah Drive, it's incredibly difficult for them. They're just going to have to wait until they can get the streets plowed. Now, one important thing to note is that county officials still say that the best way to reach out to them is through 311, even though there has been some hiccups in the process, as we reported. But they'd still rather know what streets have issues so that they can respond to them as quickly as possible. Reporting in Fort Washington, Mauricio Casillas, News 4.
Mauricio, thank you. And stay with News 4 for the latest Wednesday school closings and delays. The full list is right now scrolling at the bottom of your screen. And make sure you download the NBC Washington app or just scan the QR code right there on your screen. All right, so I'm not surprised that the schools are closed. In fact, I'm expecting we'll see maybe schools closed through Friday.
Yeah, and that's what we've been talking about. We said that last week, that's the kind of storm system we have, because not only was it with the snow, but the ice. Man, has that made it so much worse. Out there right now, one thing you notice, look at the flag, not doing a whole lot. That's good news because the wind chill, not that big of a factor. Temperature-wise, we're at 30 degrees D.C., 21 in Hagerstown, 12 up to the north. Notice this, though, the wind chill in Hagerstown, 5 degrees, 25 in D.C. We actually are starting to see some wind pick up as another frontal boundary makes its way through the area. So we're in for another very cold night. That's why we have this cold weather advisory in effect for everybody. Wind chills below zero again when you wake up early tomorrow morning. So just be ready for that. Another chilly day. Maybe a couple of flurries ongoing in our northern zones here as that system works its way on through. And you can actually see that system. Look at this right there. See this the cloud mass here and a few snow showers trying to work their way in. For us, it'll just be the cold air that works its way in. And we are talking about another very cold start tomorrow, dangerously cold. Staying below freezing all week, tracking a potential weekend storm. The latest on that one. And then minor warming into next week. Minor, but at least it's still warming.
Yes, at least it's still warming, even though it's minor. This is going to be one of those weeks. It's going to be long. It's going to be cold outside. It's going to make it even harder for you to dig out from all the sleet and snow already on the ground. So now's a great time to download the free NBC Washington app. Scan the QR code there on your screen or check your app store. You can see the Storm Team4 forecast and also have breaking weather alerts sent straight to your phone. All right, we've got much more to come tonight on the News 4 Rundown, including the lasting impact of last year's deadly mid-air collision near Reagan National Airport. Ted?
Yeah, Sean, as we continue to deal with the storm, it's important to remember it's been a year since 67 people lost their lives in that deadly mid-air collision near Reagan Airport. Now, some helicopter pilots are telling the News 4i team the changes the FAA made to keep us all safe in the sky could end up hurting public safety on the ground for our neighbors. Ahead, our investigation, including why the father of a kidnapped child thinks these changes may have gone too far.
Developing tonight, a legal setback for Virginia Democrats hoping to hold a special election this spring to ask voters to approve a constitutional amendment that would allow sudden congressional redistricting. A Tazewell County Circuit Court judge just ruled on a lawsuit filed by a GOP state senator and others that the Virginia House and Senate Democratic leaders' plan violated a series of rules. The Democrat-controlled House and Senate voted in October during a special session and again earlier this month to put the redistricting referendum before voters in April. Democrats argued President Trump's push to get Texas and other GOP states to redraw their maps before the midterms forced the move in the Commonwealth. Democratic House and Senate leaders said they will immediately appeal the ruling. They released a statement that said nothing that happened today will dissuade us from continuing to move forward and put this matter directly to the voters. Republicans who cannot win at the ballot box are abusing the legal process in an attempt to sow confusion and block Virginians from voting. Thursday marks 1 year since a passenger plane and military helicopter collided near Reagan National Airport. 67 people died. The National Transportation Safety Board held a hearing today to determine the probable cause of that tragic mid-air collision between an American Airlines jet and an Army Black Hawk helicopter near Reagan National Airport. News 4 transportation reporter Adam Tuss has been following the meeting all day and has the very latest.
Yeah, you know, the words that I would use to describe everything that was talked about today, certainly confusion, miscommunication. There was a bit of neglect in there to some degree, and all of this was being talked about as family members of the victims looked on. Loved ones of those that were lost on January 29th, 2025, with a front row seat that they never wanted, hearing about the details of that horrible night.
As a mom, I can only imagine all that you've been through. You are in our daily prayers. I pray for you every single day.
New animation shown at this hearing detailing the final moments in a simulated view to show just how difficult it would have been to see everything that night. This is what it would have looked like from the cockpit of the American Airlines jet. You can see the Black Hawk helicopter come into view suddenly on the right and then impact. This is what it would have looked like from the Black Hawk helicopter, where night vision goggles were being used by one of the crew members. Look to the left, and you can see the jet coming into view and then impact.
Yeah, a lot of disturbing stuff has come out so far.
Matthew Collins lost his brother in the crash. He's pleading for officials to do more.
Act on it. Do something. Save someone's life. We can't have this happen again.
Now, another detail that stuck out from today's hearing about that fateful night, the air traffic controller at Reagan National, who was put in charge of communicating with and separating both planes and helicopters simultaneously, reported feeling a little overwhelmed just minutes before the crash. And a technique known as visual separation was being used between the aircraft, meaning that the flight crews were relying on physically seeing one another to avoid one another. That drew this exchange.
It's so ludicrous. It's kind of ironic, I think. Am I wrong in that?
I agree. If I could add, I mean, in order to avoid something, you have to first see it.
NTSB Chair Jennifer Homendy also hammering the FAA, who she says, when questioned, had no idea who was responsible for checking on close calls between helicopters and planes at Reagan National Airport.
We couldn't find any evidence of annual reviews, nor could FAA tell us who did them. That is astounding to me. It's one, I believe, failure after another.
A perfect storm of disastrous events 1 year ago. Now, certainly when the NTSB gets down to this level of detail with their investigation, it kind of brings everything back. Some family members of the victims had to actually walk out of the hearing room today. Now, following this marathon hearing that went all day long, the NTSB released dozens of new safety findings and recommendations. Guys, back to you.
Adam, thank you. Almost immediately after last year's deadly mid-air collision, the FAA started making changes to the airspace around Reagan National. Now, they're all designed to make it safer for all of us to fly. But tonight, the News 4 I-Team and Ted Oberg are hearing from experienced pilots who suggest the changes may have gone too far and don't consider the impact they're potentially having on some residents.
Looking back at what happened to his family on August 3rd, Daniel Hill wonders if the next D.C. family will be as fortunate.
It was devastating. I was mad, crying, all that.
Daniel's 6-year-old son was kidnapped from this now-closed convenience store parking lot that day. He says D.C. police were there quickly on the ground and, crucially, in the air, too. A D.C. police helicopter searching for that young boy and the truck, seen on surveillance video within minutes.
When they called the helicopter flew around and found it.
His son was returned unharmed, and he credits that police chopper. But getting that helicopter in the air took more approval than in the past due to changes implemented by the FAA since the mid-air collision near Reagan National Airport, now requiring special permission to fly in certain areas, something that can impact flights into and out of the airport.
Unfortunately, what happened after the collision was a knee-jerk response in a lot of unnecessary changes being made in the airspace by the FAA.
Rick Dressler is a longtime helicopter pilot, most recently on a medevac helicopter in the D.C. area.
Our police ships are no longer able to fly.
The FAA has rolled out a series of changes to the way helicopters fly near Reagan National Airport since the collision last year. Dressler and a couple law enforcement pilots we've spoken with say those changes make it nearly impossible to fly over some of the neighborhoods in our area with some of the highest levels of crime. They point us to two. The first is this reconfigured map of helicopter zones, areas where police and medevac helicopters typically could fly. They've pushed those zones back from Reagan National Airport, and those red areas, nearly impossible to fly there. The second change is the elimination of what's called visual separation. It was a way the pilots of helicopters and planes could watch one another in the air and keep enough distance between one another to keep everyone safe, but that's no longer allowed within 5 miles of Reagan National Airport. Dressler and those other pilots tell us the only way to fly there is to get special permission from air traffic controllers, and they say it's almost always denied.
I know it from my relationship with Prince George's County, Fairfax County, Metropolitan Police Department. As a group, we all talk amongst ourselves, and we work as best we can with our controller friends and colleagues to try and do better. These units are still trying to do the job.
The I-Team obtained helicopter mission reports from an open records request and found Fairfax County police pilots noted numerous denials for flights last year. In October, pilots were denied 3 different times from flying near Reagan to help search for a suspect seen in bloody clothes. And that same month, pilots declined to lift off, knowing how close the scene of a missing 9-year-old was to Reagan National Airport, even though their help was requested by officers at the scene. Prince George's County Police tell us aviation total flight time over Washington, D.C. has remained consistent with previous years. But the I-Team didn't ask Prince George's County about flying over D.C. We wanted to know about flying over Prince George's County, and they didn't answer those questions. In D.C., police say they respect the FAA's authority, believe their helicopter plays an important role in public safety, and have engaged FAA representatives in several conversations since the airspace changes were made. But do tell us, flight time from August to December of this year dropped by 60% compared to the same time the year before the changes were made. They did want us to remember crime, especially carjacking, is down in that time period, too. How often do you hear the police helicopter overhead?
Not often.
Neighbors in Southwest D.C. have noticed it too. Not just a lack of emergency flights, but routine patrols cut back as well.
Way less. Because when we first moved here, I would say like every 2 hours they would circle around.
Yeah. Air traffic controllers can still allow police flights near the airport for emergencies, and they have, but there's another rule you should know about. When helicopters do fly close in, it means passenger flights in and out of Reagan Airport don't. It's what happened while D.C. police flew to search for Daniel Hill's son. As first reported by the Washington Post, more than a dozen flights were delayed that day during the police mission. It led to a tense back and forth once it was over between the D.C. police pilot and air traffic controllers, according to pilots we spoke with.
That's a chilling effect. That means the next time there's a kidnapping or a carjacking or a murder, that the police unit is less likely to take off.
And that's exactly what Daniel Hill is worried about, that these new rules might keep critical helicopters grounded in a time of crisis.
I worry of that. Because that helicopter, they might not find them.
The FAA has said the changes they've made to keep us all safe are permanent, and a senior FAA official told the I-Team, if anything, there could be more restrictions added in the future. Sean, none of the police agencies in our area would allow us to talk to their pilots. But look, combined with what Adam was talking about, it's a complicated ballet. The question is, how can we keep everyone safe on the ground and in the air?
And yeah, how do you find the middle ground? And what, if anything, is being done right now to sort of rectify or change this? What are you finding?
There is some technology, right, that would keep helicopters and planes and helicopters apart from one another. There's something called the Rotor Act. It has passed the Senate. It is stalled in the House. It would require all helicopters, including military helicopters, and this is the big one, to have some of the latest technology that would communicate electronically with one another about how high they are and where they are, and give them some sense of how to avoid collisions.
Do you think that we're going to see this process move quickly, or are we going to move very slowly?
No, I think it moves slowly because no one wants to have a repeat of what we had last January. Of course not. And keeping helicopters on the ground is one way to absolutely avoid that. But are we giving up too much? I think that's the question that the pilots we've talked to certainly want answers to.
And when you hear a parent or someone who might be in a panic and they think that their child was found because of that helicopter, to take that tool away is certainly
It's not just emotion. There is value in it.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Ted, thank you so much. We appreciate it. The News 4 Rundown will be right back. All right, so we're still in weather alert mode. Yeah. Not because the snow is coming down, but because we're going to be going even colder.
Yeah, I mean, Manassas this morning woke up to an actual temperature of 1 below zero, and we're going to see those numbers again, and then you add in a little bit of wind, not a ton, but a little bit of wind, and that's going to make it feel that much colder. Out there right now, National Harbor, Potomac, completely frozen over and across much of the Potomac River. For us, a very cold night ahead. It's 30 right now. We actually hit 30, so that's at least good news. A little bit of wind, but not much wind right now, so that wind chill is only 25. Other areas to the north, though, we're starting to see that system move through. We've got another frontal boundary that's working its way on through the area right now. Could produce a couple of flurries to the north. 21 right now in Hagerstown. Wind chill, by the way, in Hagerstown's 5 degrees, so there is a little bit of wind there. 27 in Leesburg, 28 right now in Culpeper, 30 in Fredericksburg. As we look at the current wind chill, there's that 5-degree number. 17 Gaithersburg, 12 in Winchester, 18 Front Royal. So those numbers are continuing to fall tonight, and that's why we have the cold weather alerts once again. The cold weather advisory for everybody you see here in the lighter blue. That is going to be right on through the morning hours for the wind chills, below zero tomorrow morning. A couple of snow flurries. I'm interested to see if these are actually hitting the ground here as this little system tries to work its way on through. This system is actually a cold front, but really that's about it. You can see the snow coming across the Great Lakes down towards our region, but we're not going to see anything from that. But notice the country is on the quiet side. It will be until we get to this weekend. We're tracking a storm system. This is on Friday now. It's tracking a storm that's going to develop down to the south. And for the most part, I think this stays to the south and it stays offshore. Look at Saturday night, D.C., dry, but look at what we've got just off the coast here. We've got a storm. I told you the last couple of days, this will be a blizzard somewhere. And right now, that somewhere looks to be the eastern part of North Carolina. I do think this could hit areas like Ocean City as well. So this is something we'll continue to watch. But I also think this is a swing and a miss for us. So maybe that's some good news for you if you don't want another storm. How far east does this storm track? That's what I'm really watching, because if it's close enough to us on Sunday, maybe we don't get any snow, but we could get some pretty good wind. It would just be brutally cold. But right now, yeah, minor to no snow accumulation is what we're thinking. Could that change? Yes, but it is something we'll continue to watch for you. Tomorrow morning, waking up to those wind chills. Look at these numbers, below zero in most locations. So once again, a frigid start to your Wednesday. Temperatures, well, they just go down the next couple of days. 23 on Friday, 20 on Saturday. There's that snow chance on Sunday. We'll keep watching that. And then next week, hey, we get above freezing. Hooray.
Hooray indeed. We're looking to get above freezing. Thank you, Doug. All right, well, that'll do it for the News 4 Rundown on this Tuesday evening. NBA on NBC is coming your way next, of course, followed by News 4 at 11 tonight. We hope you guys will stay inside, stay warm, and join us tonight. We'll have the very latest on what you can expect tomorrow. All right, good night, everybody.